Welcome to Mythos and Mankind. Today, we dive into the poignant tale of Baldur's tragic fall and the desperate efforts to bring him back. But will they succeed? Let's find out. In the resplendent halls of Asgard, where the gods dwelled in eternal light and merriment, none shone as brightly as Baldur. Beloved by all and radiant in his beauty, Baldur was the god of light and purity. His every step brought warmth to the divine court, and his laughter was said to echo like the music of the spheres. The gods marveled at his charm and strength, and his very presence seemed to brighten the celestial realm. So admired was he that even his faults appeared to be eclipsed by his luminous nature. From his earliest days, it was clear that Baldur was destined for greatness and protection. His mother, the wise and tender Frigg, was determined to keep him safe from harm. Knowing that dreams could be omens of what was to come, Frigg took every precaution. She traveled far and wide, speaking with every creature, every plant, and every object in the 9 worlds. In her quest to shield her precious son, she extracted solemn oaths from all things, promising that nothing would ever wound Baldur. Every element, every weapon, and every force in nature agreed to this pledge, except for one seemingly insignificant plant, the mistletoe. Deemed too small and harmless to worry about, it was left out of the protective pact. For a time, all seemed well. The gods, reassured by Baldur's newfound invulnerability, took delight in a peculiar game. They would gather in the great hall and, with good humor, hurl spears, arrows, and other projectiles at Baldur. Each weapon bounced off him as though he were encased in an invisible shield, and laughter rang out through Asgard as Baldur smiled and continued his noble stroll. The jovial sport reinforced the belief that nothing could harm him. Yet in the midst of this merriment lurked mischief incarnate. Loki, the trickster god, whose cleverness was as infamous as his penchant for chaos, watched the proceedings with a growing envy and malice. Resenting the adoration lavished upon Baldur, Loki began to scheme. His curiosity was piqued when he learned of Frigg's oversight, the mistletoe, the one object that had not been bound by its promise. With his mind racing, Loki secretly slipped away from the revelry and ventured into the wild groves of Asgard to gather a sprig of the insidious plant. Returning with his prize, Loki set his dark plan into motion. There, among the assembled gods enjoying their playful contest, stood Hodur, the blind and gentle brother of Baldur. Though incapable of joining the game because of his lack of sight, Hodur longed to participate and honor his brother. Sensing an opportunity, Loki approached the unsuspecting Hodur. With honeyed words and subtle persuasion, he convinced the blind god to join the sport. Loki produced the branch of mistletoe, now fashioned into a dart-like weapon, and handed it to Hodur, assuring him that it was no different from the other harmless objects being tossed at Baldur. Hodur, trusting in Loki's guidance, stepped forward into the circle of laughing gods. Though he could not see, he sensed the warmth of Baldur's presence and the joyful atmosphere of the hall. With trembling hands, Hodur gripped the slender shaft of mistletoe. At Loki's urging, he aimed in the direction of his radiant brother. In that fateful moment, time itself seemed to pause. The mistletoe dart flew through the air, a small, unassuming projectile carrying a terrible destiny, and struck Baldur squarely in the chest. The impact was instantaneous and catastrophic. Where before Baldur had been untouched by any weapon, now the light of Asgard dimmed as his body crumpled to the floor. In a heartbeat, the beloved god fell, and a heavy silence descended upon the hall. The laughter turned to gasps of shock, and the jubilant game was forgotten as the full weight of the tragedy took hold. In that dark, sorrowful instant, the divine court was plunged into mourning. The gods could only stand in stunned silence, their hearts heavy with grief as they beheld the fallen Baldur. His brilliant form, once a symbol of hope and light, now lay lifeless, its radiance extinguished by a single misguided act. Frigg, stricken with inconsolable anguish, wept bitterly for her lost son. The pain of loss rippled through Asgard like a cold wind, touching every immortal heart. The aftermath of Baldur's death was swift and solemn. The gods resolved to honor him with a grand funeral befitting the one they had cherished above all. Baldur's magnificent ship, Hringhorni, the largest vessel in Asgard, was prepared to carry his body to the realm of the dead. In a poignant and elaborate ceremony, the gods gathered to lay him to rest. Yet when the time came to set the ship afloat, the gods found themselves unable to budge the massive vessel. It was then that they summoned a mighty giantess, Hyrrokin, renowned for her fearsome strength. Riding atop a great wolf and harnessing serpents as her reins, Hyrrokin strode into Asgard and, with a single powerful push, launched Hringhorni into the sea. The very earth trembled at her might, and flames leaped as the ship began its solemn voyage across the waves. Not content to let Baldur remain forever in the realm of the dead, the gods sought to reclaim him from Hel, the cold, shadowy domain ruled by the goddess of the underworld. Odin, ever the father of gods and men, entrusted the daring god Hermodr with the task of journeying to Hel to plead for Baldur's return. Mounted upon Sleipnir, Odin's eight-legged steed, Hermodr raced through the 9 worlds, his heart full of hope and determination. He reached the bleak gates of Hel and found himself standing before its austere ruler. Hermodr knelt and, with a voice both steady and imploring, recounted the grief of Asgard and the love that all creatures bore for Baldur. In response, Hel laid down a single, heartbreaking condition. If every living thing, whether god, giant, or mortal, were to weep for Baldur, then he might return to the realm of the living. But if even one being withholds its tear, Baldur would be doomed to dwell forever in the darkness of Hel. Hope flickered in Asgard, and messengers were dispatched to every corner of the 9 worlds, urging all to weep for the fallen god. For a time, it seemed that the condition might be met. Every creature shed a tear, every river of sorrow flowed for Baldur, except one. In a final act of treachery, Loki, ever the agent of chaos, had assumed the guise of a giantess named Thuk, often interpreted as Thok, and resolutely refused to weep. With that single refusal, the delicate balance was shattered. Baldur's fate was sealed. He was to remain in Hel until the end of days, until the prophesied cataclysm of Ragnarok swept away the old order and gave birth to a new world. Thus, the tragic tale of Baldur's fall became etched in the annals of divine history. It was a moment of profound loss, a single lapse that set in motion the chain of events leading to the eventual doom of the gods. And so, in the halls of Asgard, where light once danced freely, a shadow now lingered, a shadow that foretold the coming of Ragnarok and the end of an age.